Good morning, students. Welcome to our new theoretical course on theoretical grammar. My name is Альжанова А.Ы. I'll be your teacher on this course. So today we're going to talk about the first lecture, Fundamentals of Grammatical Structures. And let's begin from looking at our plan for today, Fundamentals of Grammar. The first part of our lecture is about grammatical category, grammatical meaning, and grammatical form. The second part is theory of oppositions, types of oppositions, oppositions in morphology. The third is morpheme, derivation morphemes, and inflection morphemes. And the last one is distributional analysis, morphemic analysis, and IC analysis. Okay, so let's find out what is grammatical category, grammatical meaning, and grammatical form. The general notion of grammar, which determine the structure of language and find their expression in inflection and other devices, are generally called grammatical categories. As is known, a grammatical category is generally represented by at least two grammatical forms. Otherwise, it cannot exist. A simple case of oppositions in pairs of grammatical forms will be found, for instance, between the singular and the plural in nouns, or between active and passive in verbs. A grammatical category is a unit of grammar based on a morphological opposition of grammatical meanings represented in grammatical forms. Grammatical meaning are very abstract, very general. Therefore, the grammatical form is not confined to an individual word, but unites a whole class of words, so that each word of the class expresses the corresponding grammatical meaning together with its individual concrete semantics. Grammatical meanings ranged in oppositions and presented in grammatical forms build grammatical categories. Grammatical forms. Grammatical forms can be morphemes, synthetic forms, and grammatical word combinations, which are analytical forms. Synthetic forms unite both lexical and grammatical meanings in one word. In analytical forms, there are two or more words in which at least one element is an auxiliary. The auxiliary is a constant element of an analytical structure, which is devoid of lexical meaning. It renders grammatical meanings and is a purely grammatical element. Analytical structures must be differentiated from free syntactical word combinations. In free syntactical word combinations, all the elements possesses both lexical and grammatical meanings. The distinctions of gender in Russian are universal. They refer to all the vocabulary of the language. In English, the distinction is not a grammatical phenomenon. The grammatical category of gender is lost. What we have now is some gender distinctions existing as the remnant of history. The distinction waiter versus waitress is not universal enough to build up a grammatical category. It doesn't possess the level of grammatical abstraction characterized by an unlimited range of occurrence. So look at these two words, book and books. The ending s is a form-building morpheme that builds a grammatical form because it's characterized by the level of grammatical abstraction realized in an unlimited range of occurrence. Types of word form derivation. These fall under two main headings. A. Those limited to changes in the body of the word without having recourse to auxiliary words, synthetic types. And B. Those implying the use of auxiliary words, analytical types. Besides, these are a few special cases in different forms of a word being derived from altogether different stems. So let's find out what is synthetic types. The number of morphemes used for deriving word forms in modern English is very small, much smaller than either in German or in Russian, for instance. There is the ending s, es with three variants of pronunciation and the ending en and ren in one or two words each. Look at these words. Oxen, brethren. Ox is a singular, the plural form is oxen. Singular brother, plural form brethren. It's a poetical word which is used in poetry. And the word children, the plural form of a child. There is the ending s with the same three variants of pronunciation as for the plural ending used to form what is generally termed the genitive case of noun. What I mean by saying three variants of pronunciation, it means that we pronounce it like s, z, and is. For adjectives, there are the ending er and est for the degrees of comparison. For verbs, there is the ending s, es for the third person singular present indicative, which are with the same three variants of pronunciation noted above for nouns. The ending d or ed for the past tense of certain verbs with three variants of pronunciation again. D, t, id. The ending d or ed for the second participle of certain verbs. The ending n, en for the second participle of certain other verbs. And the ending ing for the first participle and also for the gerund. Thus, the total number of morphemes used to derive forms of words is 11 or 12, which is much less than the number found in languages of a mainly synthetical structure. It should also be denoted that most of these endings are monosemantic, in the sense that they denote only one grammatical category and not two or three or more at a time, as is the case in synthetic languages. For example, the plural s or es denotes only the category of plural number and has nothing to do with any other grammatical category, such as case. Sound alternations. Sound alternations are a way of expressing grammatical categories which consist in changing a sound inside the root. This method appears in modern English, for example, in nouns, as when the root vowel ow of mouse is changed into I in mice, etc. This method is much more extensively used in verbs such as write, wrote, written, sing, sang, sung, meet, met, met, etc. On the whole, vowel alternation does play some part among the means of expressing grammatical categories, though its part in modern English has been much reduced as compared to Old English. Analytical types. If synthetical type is the formation of words by adding morphemes like prefixes and suffixes and endings, so analytical types are denoted with the use of auxiliary. Okay, so let's look at the lecture. These consist in using a word devoid of any lexical meaning of its own to express some grammatical category of another word. There can be no doubt in modern English about the analytical character of such formations as example, has invited, or is invited, or is inviting, or doesn't invite. The verbs have, be, and do have no lexical meaning of their own in these cases. The lexical meaning of the formation resides in the participle or infinitive following the verb have, be, or do. Some doubts has been expressed about the formation shall invite and will invite. There is a view that shall and will have a lexical meaning. If you look at the dictionary, you can find the definitions and translations of these two words, shall and will. While the existence of analytical forms of the English verb cannot be disputed, the existence of such forms in adjectives and adverbs is not nowadays universally recognized. The question whether such formations as more vivid, the most vivid, or again more vividly and most vividly are or are not analytical forms of degrees of comparison of vivid and vividly is controversial. We can only say here that if these formations are recognized as analytical forms of degrees of comparison, the words more and most have to be numbered among the analytical means of morphology. Suppletive formation. Suppletive means additional or extra formations. Besides the synthetical and analytical means of building word forms in modern English, there is yet another way of building them which stands quite apart and is found in a very limited number of cases only. By suppletive formation, we mean building a form of a word from an altogether different stem. Stem is a root. Examples. In point are the verb go with its past tense went, the personal pronoun I with its objective case for me, the adjective would with its comparative degree for better, and a few more. In the morphological system of modern English, suppletive formations are a very insignificant element, but they concern a few very widely used words among adjectives, pronouns, and verbs. So, suppletive formation is a word formation that is built by changing the whole root of the word. So as you can see from these examples, I changed into me in adjective case, and the verb go changed into went in its past tense. Theory on oppositions. Types of oppositions, oppositions in morphology. In distinguishing grammatical categories, we shall often have to mention oppositions, that is, pairs of grammatical forms opposed to each other in some way. The opposition may be defined as a generalized correlation of lingual forms by means of which a certain function is expressed. The correlated elements or members of the opposition must possess two types of features: common features and different features. Differential features. Common features serve as the basis of constant, while differential features immediately express the function in question. The oppositional theory was originally formulated as a phonological theory. Three main qualitative types of oppositions were established in phonology: privative, gradual, and equivalent. By the number of members contrasted, oppositions were divided into binary and more than binary, ternary and quaternary, etc. The most important type of oppositions is the binary privative opposition. The other types of oppositions are reducible to the binary privative opposition. The binary privative opposition is formed by a contrastive pair of members in which one member is characterized by the presence of a certain differential feature, strong, marked, positive, while the other member is characterized by the absence of the feature, weak, unmarked, and negative. Example: voiced versus devoiced consonants. The gradual opposition is formed by a contrastive group of members which are distinguished not by the presence or absence of the feature, but by the degree of it. The equivalent opposition is formed by a contrastive pair of group in which the members are distinguished by different positive features. Example: m, b, sounds m and b. Both bilabial consonants form an equivalent opposition. M, the sound m, being sonorous, nasalized, and b being plosive. Any opposition can be reformulated in privative terms. Any positive features distinguishing an oppositionally characterized elements in absent in the oppositionally correlated element, so that considered from the point of view of this feature alone, the opposition by definition becomes privative. The most important type of opposition in morphology is the binary privative opposition. The privative morphological opposition is based on a morphological differential features which is present in its strong member and absent in its weak member, for example, present and past. Speaking about morphological oppositions, we need to keep in mind the fact that members of morphological oppositions, unlike those of Phonological oppositions possess both the plane of expression and the plane of content. For example, cat and cats. The meaning of the weak member is more general and abstract as compared with the meaning of the strong member, which is more particular and specific. Due to this difference in meaning, the unmarked member is used in a wider range of contexts than the marked member. For example, the present tense form of the verb as different form of past tense is used to render a meaning much broader than those differently implied by the corresponding time plane. Equivalent oppositions in the system of English morphology constitute a minor type and are mostly confined to formal relations only. Example, am, are, is. Gradual oppositions in morphology are not generally recognized. They can be identified as a minor type at the semantic level only. Example, strong, stronger, strongest. In various contextual positions, one member of an opposition can be used in the position of the other. This phenomenon can be referred to as reduction of oppositions. Example, U.S. soldier goes to Iraq. The conference opens next week. The weak member replaces the strong one. This oppositional reduction is stylistically indifferent. Use of the unmarked member doesn't transgress the expressive conventions of ordinary speech. This kind of oppositional reduction is called neutralization. Other type of oppositional reduction is called transposition. It's defined as contrastive use of the counter member of the opposition, the strong one, as a rule. Example, she is always finding faults with me. Let's move on to the next part, morpheme, derivation morphemes, and inflection morphemes. Most word-forming morphemes are ambiguous. That's, they don't with certainly point to any definite part of speech, but leave some choice which has to be decided by other criteria. The morpheme is one of the central notions of grammatical theory without which no serious attempts at grammatical study can be made. Definition of a morpheme is not an easy matter, and it has been attempted many times by different scholars. Without going into particulars of the discussion that have taken place, we may briefly define the morphemes as the smallest meaningful units into which a word form may be divided. For instance, if we take the form writers, it can be divided into three morphemes. 1. Writ, expressing the basic lexical meaning of the word. Second, er, expressing the idea of agent performing the action, indicated by the root of the verb. The third, s, ending s, indicating number, that is showing that more than one person of this type indicated is meant. Similarly, the form advantageously can be divided into three morphemes: advantage plus os plus li, each with a special meaning of its own. In grammar, we are of course concerned with the grammatical or structural meaning of morphemes. We don't here study the meaning of root morphemes, which are necessarily lexical, and as to derivation morphemes, those which serve to build words, we are only interested in them insofar as they are grammatically relevant, and that is the case if they show that the word belongs to a certain part of speech, and if they serve to distinguish one part of speech from another. This grammatical significance of derivation morphemes, if it's there at all, is always combined with their lexical meaning. For instance, if we take this pair of words, write verb and writer noun, the derivative morpheme er has a grammatical significance as it serves to distinguish a noun from a verb, and it has its lexical meaning, as the lexical meaning of the noun writer is different from that of the verb write. Inflection morphemes have no lexical meaning or function. There is not the slightest difference in the way of lexical meaning between live and lived, or 11 between house and houses. However, an inflection morpheme can acquire a lexical meaning in some special cases, for instance, if the plural form of a noun develops a meaning which the singular form has not. Thus, the plural form colors has a meaning flag, which the singular form color has not. There are cases of lexicalization. And our last part, distributional analysis, morphemic analysis, and IC analysis. And here we're going to talk about analysis that help us to study theoretical grammar. By the term distribution, we understand the occurrence of a lexical unit relative to other lexical units of the same level, words relative to words, morphemes relative to morphemes, etc. In other words, by this term we understand the position which lexical units occupy or may occupy in the text or in the flow of speech. The distribution of a unit is the sum total of all its environments. The environment of a unit may be either right or left. It's readily observed that a certain component of the word meaning is distributed when the word is identified distributionally. The distributional analysis is used to fix and study the units of language in relation to their contextual environments, adjoining elements in the text. In the distribution analysis at the morphemic level, phonemic distribution of morphemes and morphemic distribution of morphemes are discriminated. The study is conducted in two stages. At the first stage, the analyzed text is divided into recurrent segments consisting of phonemes. These segments are called morphs. At the second stage, the environmental features of the morphs are established and the corresponding identification are effected. Three main types of distribution are discriminated: contrastive, non-contrastive, and complementary. Contrastive and non-contrastive distribution concern identical environment of different morphs. The morphs are said to be in contrastive distribution if their meanings are different. Complementary distribution concerns different environments of formally different morphs which are united by the same meaning. If two or more morphs have the same meaning and the difference in their form is explained by different environments, these morphs are said to be in complementary distribution and considered the allomorphs of the same morpheme. Example: desks, girls, glasses. In this example, pay attention to the pronunciation of the last sound S. In desks, it's pronounced like S. In girls, it's pronounced like Z, and in glasses, it's pronounced like is. Glasses. The procedure of the morphemic analysis states the morphemic structure of the word. The procedure consists of two operations. The first one is the stem is separated from the inflection by means of comparing word forms of the word. The second one, relations between morphemes in the stem are stated by means of comparing cognate words. The morphemic analysis based on the distributional analysis have rise to such notions as morphs, allomorphs, morphemes, etc. The theory of immediate constituents, IC, analysis was originally elaborated as an attempt to determine the ways in which lexical units are relevantly related to one another. It was discovered that combinations of such units are usually structured into hierarchically arranged sets of binary constructions. For example, in the word group, a black dress in severe style, we don't relate A to black, black to dress, dress to in, etc. But set up a structure which may be represented as a black dress in severe style. Thus, the fundamental aim of IC analysis is to segment a set of lexical units into two maximally independent sequences, or ICs, thus revealing the hierarchical structure of this set. Successive segmentation results in ultimate constituents UC, i.e. two-facet units that cannot be segmented into smaller units having both sound form and meaning. The ultimate constituents of the word group analyzed above are A, black dress in severe style. The meaning of the sentence, word group, etc., and the IC binary segmentation are interdependent. For example, fat major's wife may mean that either the major is fat or his wife is fat. The former semantic interpretation presupposes the IC analysis into fat major's wife, whereas the latter reflects a different segmentation into ICs, and namely fat major's wife. So we finished today's first lesson. I hope that everything was clear. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, we will talk about them and discuss them on our next lesson. So goodbye, students. See you next time.